All right, let's talk about setup and a few treatment things, and then we'll after that we'll take a lunch break before we do a demo. So you know, if you work at different places, right, you're going to have access to a different amount of equipment and setup, but it's good if your sink is nearby. I've worked at places where there's a sink in every room, and that is handy because you're going to have a lot of setup and cleanup. For heaters, they do sell these professional stone heaters. You can find them on places like Massage Warehouse and Zenith Massage and Amazon. Nice things about them is that usually you can set either an exact temperature or, you know, it has some good temperature settings and it's designed for this. But if you want something a lot cheaper, you can use like a crock pot. And so, you know, same kind of deal, but a lot cheaper.
But you have to be more vigilant about the temperature because they can get up to boiling and
heat up as fast and like that you know that.
they heat up just about as fast, but you really need to have a thermometer in there so you can monitor the heat. I don't like using crock pots for exactly that reason, because I worry that, you know, I'm not going to notice and it's going to be too hot and I'll burn myself or my client. So I like dedicated hot stone warmers.
Kind of similarly, for danger reasons, you know, I would not recommend a skillet, but some people also use skillets. And the benefit is that they can heat up fast, but they can be really dangerous. And if you're not paying attention, it could be really bad. There you go. Make some pancakes too. Be careful, even this kind of heater, the outside of the units will often get like burning to the touch. So you know, be careful with holding from the top. Your exact setup for these, you know, can vary, and I'll show you in the one we're going to work with today. But a couple tips. It's optional. But you may want to put a white towel on the bottom before you put your stones and your water, because the stones we're working with are basically basalt or lava stones. And so they're usually pretty dark, either like gray or black or darker colors, and usually easier to see on a white background than the black background. Again, this is optional. You'll see in my workstation, I put a white towel down. You're going to want to organize inside just so you can grab the right stones. And some people get like super precise about how they line up their stones inside, or you might just kind of want general areas. So here I've got like my sacrum stone down there, that beautiful one in the bottom right. And then I've got my placement stones there on the bottom left. And then I've got my working stones on the upper right. And I kind of organize them by size. And then over there on the left, you can see some interesting pointy stones for things like trigger points. You have anything you want to add about organization of your stones?
No, and other than the amount of stones that you use totally depends on the person. I am not a whole ton of stones kind of hot stone person. But not a minimalist either.
There you go. It probably says something about a person.
Yeah.
How many stones they like.
In the chapter, it says like you want a set of like 55.
Yeah, it could be more or less than that. Again, like it depends how you use them, and but like you might want as many as like 10 to 20 just placement stones. So then how many working stones do you want as well?
Like about how many stones do you think you use?
I like a lot of stones. I might use like 8. I might use like 60 stones. Yeah.
I would say I probably use about 40.
You use like 1,000?
Not on one client. That would take up a lot of space.
Take up 7 rooms.
So a couple things here. One way you could have less stones is once you've used them, you could put them back in there and they'll heat up faster and you could reuse them. But if you do that, then you've got to clean everything between every client. If you take your stones out in a clean way, like this scoop, and you don't put stones back and you don't put your hands in there, then you've got your warm water already. And next time you can just throw more stones in there. And then you're not like scraping out, soap and water, scrubbing the whole inside. So I would recommend the latter approach, but that's up to you.
Where's the cheapest place to get some, Susan?
The beach.
Yeah, you can get your own on the beach.
And if you were buying them, if you were-
I mean, I would start Massage Warehouse. They have sales and stuff and look around. A lot of times they'll sell them as sets. I would look at the shapes of them, and sometimes certain companies will like use some kind of like a grinder or cutter and make some of the sides like flat. And I hate working with stones like that. So I would get like a natural stone.
like that, almost to a point.
They make the two sides completely flat, and then, you'll see it's unnatural. I don't like working with stones that have been damaged in that way. I don't like their shape, and I don't like that somebody did that to the stones.
Yeah, you can find a lot of sets, like if you look on Amazon, they'll have sets with like perfectly round stones, and like it'll have like, 10 round stones and some oval ones and maybe a pointy one, but you can tell that they've been like shaped that way, and I don't like those either. Those make me uncomfortable for some reason.
Me too.
I don't know.
I'm uncomfortable just talking about it.
It also the energy of the stone.
It does.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to piss off the stones.
That's what you were not saying.
Yeah. All right, so let's go over some of the other things. You want something to grab the stones out with, some type of a slotted spoon. They will sell these along with massage kits at massage supply stores, and sometimes you'll pay more for them. So you could get the same kind of thing from like different places that sell cooking supplies or like Asian marts. And so it's okay to not get one from a hot stone supply. I would caution you though against getting ones that part of it is wood and part of it is metal, just because you want to be able to like fully clean it. So a metal one is nice.
I really like a pair of tongs, but you have to get ones with like the silicone grips. The
Yeah.
metal ones will not hold on to the heavier stones, but if you get the ones with the silicone on them, those usually do pretty well.
Nice. It's reminding me of like that claw game. Yeah. All right. So at your workstation, you're going to want at least one bath or beach towel to dry your stones off. And then you'll see we want at least one bath towel on the client, bath or beach towel. It can be nice to have extra face towels to like wrap stones around their feet and so forth, but at least a bath or beach towel for your workstation and one for the client. So at least two. Optionally, not all massage therapists use contrast therapy with hot stone. So the ice bath is optional, but the ice bath can be nice for contrast therapy, and it can be also nice to give yourself contrast therapy. Because we are working with so much heat and it's all on our hands, the clients are getting the heat on their whole body, and we are getting the heat for like 90 minutes on our hands. So I like to, before I burn myself, treat myself to cold plunges regularly when I do hot stone massage, because otherwise you might feel like you're fine when you're doing the work, and then see after you've done the work that actually you got too much heat and you're even burned. So I like to cold plunge regularly. It's good for your body anyway. When you're getting that much heat, you want to flush it out with cold. I do that in my regular practice between every session. I don't always have an ice bath, but we've got these nice big deep sinks where I work, and deep enough to just really get your whole arm. And I will go between a hot scrub, cleaning like you're supposed to clean, and then really, really cold as I can make the water, all the way up to my elbows, and just really freeze my arms and hands between every session. Because a lot of what you want to do is preventative, right? So if you wait until you actually feel sore, you've waited too long. So you want to treat yourself knowing that you're giving yourself a really good circulatory hard workout. You want to do the things preventatively that take care of yourself.
Do you have any other suggestions for somebody with really sensitive skin?
Yes, I do. You can also take, I'm bad at towel size names, but the smallest size towel.
Like a washcloth?
Thank you. Every year people have to tell me towels and I can't commit them to my brain. You could take a washcloth or even cut up towels. And when you're doing stationary techniques, you can put something between you and the hot stone that the client doesn't feel to protect yourself. Because again, they're getting the treatment on their whole body and you're getting it here the whole time.
Yeah, my hands are really kind of hypersensitive with some things, and I think like a lot of heat would be really hard on me.
Yeah, so I would bring some washcloths tomorrow, or if you have any kind of like scrap towels that are clean, you could cut them up into small bits. Yep, protect yourself. Yep. Something unique to hot stone massage is that you really need to use oil, even if you normally like cream or lotion. The cream or lotion will kind of get tacky and not good with the stones and also like separate. So any kind of oil really, like if your client needs something more hypoallergenic, you could go in like a jojoba or a coconut oil direction. And if not, you could go into a blend kind of direction. Some people like the blends better because they're sometimes a little more smooth than like just one. I find jojoba, I like it a lot. I like how hypoallergenic it is, but I find it a little drier than either a mixed or even a coconut. I don't find as dry. There's types of coconut oil made specifically for massage that don't smell all coconutty. At any massage supply store, you'll see them. They're like a fractionated coconut oil, so you're not getting that whole, you know, you feel like you're cooking with the client.
You don't come out smelling like a macaroon.
There you go. You are going to get dehydrated if you're not careful. So I would recommend any, even just plain water or electrolyte type waters like coconut waters or emergencies or fruit juices, bananas, like anything that gives you a little electrolyte. I like when I know I'm going to do hot stone massage, I like to prep ahead of time, during and after. So like I've already had a banana today and I'm hitting the water hard now, and I'll keep the water and electrolytes going throughout the day. If you've waited till you've gotten a headache, of course you've waited too long. Here's my extra towels. They're nice for foot wraps and so forth. And then not all places have this setup, but it can be nice to have extra cold water if you need to change the temperature quickly. A thermometer is nice to keep track of the temperature. How hot do we want it? Beautiful. So we want somewhere around 120 to 130. Every client's a little different. We can adjust the temperature. I'll show you some techniques, you know, how you can adjust it as we go. You'll want some kind of a bucket or container for your dirty stones. We're going to be scrubbing every single one with soap and water and then spraying it with the all natural hospital grade cleaner afterwards. Now, this is a pretty nice setup here on wheels. There's different versions you can do. And again, it can depend on your workplace, but the water in this with the stones is going to be really heavy. So it's nice if you have some way of traveling to your sink that is rolling and not so heavy, and it's easy to spill water. We want to be careful of water spills as well. Yes.
Doing a blood test, I read somewhere that when you first like have your stones, when you first buy your stones, and you bring water, it's gonna smell really.
Sometimes, yeah. Or you know what, I found smells the first time is actually the heating unit. I don't find kitchen like crock pots to do this as much, but this type of heater, sometimes the first time you use it, it can smell a lot even. So I like to test that out by like heating it up, a new one, before I have clients and like not in the same room as clients.
Although the stones sometimes do have kind of a a warm, earthy scent to them, but it's not strong.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I think we're almost through all the important stuff, but let's get through some important heat factors here before we call it a lunch. Obviously, heat is an issue here and we don't want to burn clients. So, you know, number one is we don't want to put the placement stones directly on the client. So in order to do this, these stones would have been like you already worked with them and they're already cooled down, but you don't want to take them straight out and put them on there. So we're going to dry them and put them on a towel. So that's number one. Similarly, like if you're going to do placement stones on their feet or their hands, same thing, you got to put something between them and the stones. Next consideration is that keep in mind that the bigger stones get hotter and stay hotter longer. You're going to see a dramatic difference between like our big sacrum stone, our placement stones, and the little teeny stones that we use on the face. So be aware of that. Also, different areas of the body can take more heat than others. And obviously there's some variation from client to client, but also in general, most people can take more heat like on their upper back than their lower back. Most people can take more heat on like their shoulders than their forearms. So you want to be careful of the areas that can't handle as much heat. So things we can do is introduce smaller stones first. Take some of the heat off the stone. Make sure you know how much heat is on the stone before you use it. And then you're going to see this in my demo. But one of the most important things is when you have a really fresh hot stone, you want to keep it moving. So you never take a fresh hot stone and set it on the client and say, is that too hot? To be like, yes, that's too hot. So, but if you take the hot stones and you've tested the temperature, dried them off, oiled them, and then you're moving on the client, right? And then you ask them, you know, how the heat is. You can also start with just one stone. So don't think because it's hot stone massage that you always need a stone in each hand. So we can also introduce the heat by massaging them and then let them know, okay, I'm going to take one hot stone now. And so you kind of introduce it slowly. Just like, I don't know if you ever go to steam or sauna or anything like that with friends or family, it's very similar to how some people can take tons of heat for a long time and some people barely any heat or not for a long time, right? So we're adjusting kind of dramatically for clients, right? And some of them are going to be 110 degrees and it's like warm stone massage. And other people are going to want like really hot stone massage. And so you're adjusting. Another way to adjust is that, you know, if you find that client who kind of like likes it not as intense, if you have time, you can just set a bunch of stones out of the heater to start cooling down. But if you want to cool down some stones faster, you can take them out and give them a quick plunge in the cold and then, you know, dry them off and test them again. One of the most important things is communication. So let the client know, let you know anytime it's too hot. And that seems like common sense, but you'd be surprised how often the client thinks that therapist magically knows what they're doing instead of the client really needs to let the therapist know how the temperature is going. And I will show you a few techniques like for our placement stones. We're going to make this little wrap for them so that if it gets too hot for the client, we can quickly remove the whole thing safely. So that's kind of the main thing is heat control and not burning them. If the client likes lavender and they're not sensitive to lavender, you can also have something like a lavender hydrosol around so that you can also mist them and cool them off. Or anything cooling. Rose is also cooling. But of course, make sure ahead of time that they're okay with those products. I can bring in some cooling hydrosols tomorrow. You can experience whether you like them or not. And then last but not least, if you're going to use any cold contrast therapy, always get permission first, and I will show you some communication tips around it. You never want to shock somebody with the cold. Almost everybody loves the heat more than the cold, and you don't want to just out of the blue get them a cold one.